Churches Housing had worked with this board. Specifically, Rose Hollow has been mentioned in terms of getting the financing for that. It happened before my time. I don't know. Maybe somebody has institutional knowledge of that. But that was done without the traditional funding. What we're using for Midvale Commons and what we use for these others is 9% credits from the state. My understanding is that Rose Hollow did not use that. It was done with combinations of other public and private financing. So really like to be able to do something without those 9% credits. Those are very difficult to get, very competitive. We're really looking for our next project to be something different. These big, 70 to 100 unit apartment buildings are great in their own right, but we're looking at other options too. And we're hoping that something in terms of being in the village would obviously have to be a much smaller scale. We don't want any 100 unit apartment buildings in the village, but we're looking for something smaller. If the financing is right, or something out in the town of Parrington, and we're not even opposed to looking at partnerships in the contiguous towns. So anything adjacent to Parrington, we're open to looking at also. So that is kind of the highlights. So this brochure has a little bit about the 10 churches that are participating in it, plus Fairport Baptist Home Caring Ministries. That's that part of the organization was not part of the bankruptcy. They're independent of the Baptist Home, so they will remain a separate 501c3 entity. They're kind of still working out some of the details, and I'm sure there will be some name changes and stuff as that goes on. But
does that include Craft Bits and Pieces?
Yes,
the tool
Craft Bits and Pieces, the Tool Thrift Shop, Elder Bus, and so so that all of those components will remain independent from the Baptist Home. I think there's still a few other things that they're working on, whether it's going to stay with the new company or stay with the existing one. But that's close to being worked out.
Can you talk a little bit about what your role is, for example, at Midvale Commons? You don't come across as the suit and tie type people, right? The financiers, but you're heavily involved in a very significant way, right?
In Fairport Apartments and Jefferson Park Apartments, we're minority owners. So we're kind of the Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder of the owners, just trying to make sure that the residents have a good quality of life. And that's what we're really striving for. We're trying to have a good quality of life. We don't want to just build tenements. We want people to have, we want our seniors to be, we want them to have a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. So that's the role we've been playing as minority owner. With Midvale Commons, we're actually a 50-50 owner with Pat Stone. So we'll be more active in terms of what's going to be going on there. This one, so Midvale Commons, actually, so we've already had, there was a lottery for the initial tenancy. We had 38 spots open, and we had 76 people applying, and we're still receiving more and more applications. So those take a while to get processed through, but that will be So we're really excited about getting people in the door, getting them services. We'll be working with Sophie. We'll be working with Rochester Regional Health in terms of people. If you're familiar with ESHI, that's extended services.
Supportive Health Initiative.
Thank you. For people who need a little bit more help, so getting extra services for those folks. This building has some amenities that our others don't. Fitness center. There's one. This one, and also this one is zero
Carbon
Net
neutral?
zero.
Net
Net zero.
net zero.
Net zero on the electricity. So we'll be having energy efficient appliances. Yeah, it's just
State of the art thing.
State
I
of the
think,
art.
Jennifer, you took a tour,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's really cool in there. Yeah.
And
So yeah,
How long did it take this Midvale Commons? You've been at it for years.
been at it for shortly after the rehab at Fairport Apartments was done in 2012. We started trying to identify properties. And we identified actually several properties that were bought out from under us, quite honestly, because our purchase offers were always contingent. So if somebody came up with cash, yeah, sure, I would take the cash too. Yeah, we lost a few properties that way, but we identified this in 2017, 16. So we identified the property when the pandemic hit. It really, really hurt. So we were, yeah, it slowed things down quite a bit. We finally were able to break ground in February of this year. Like I said, we're about 90% complete now. So it's taken a long time. And it seemed like every 2 steps forward, we were taking a step backwards. But some people would say we're persistent. I like to say we're persistent. We're goal-driven, focused. This is the mission. The mission of this group is housing, and we want decent housing for folks who need it, and that's really where we're focusing. So I know housing is one of the focuses of this group too, and we had worked together in the past, and it just kind of seems like it haven't. That kind of fell by the wayside for whatever reason, and we're hoping to be able to figure out how we can work together going forward and make housing for low-income seniors more of a reality.
Some of us might not be familiar with Rose Hollow. Can you just give us a quick overview of that?
Yeah, Rose Hollow off of Durant. It's 12 units. There's only 12 units. And each apartment, it's just a one level. Each apartment has its own access. Yeah, why don't you take Rose Hollow?
There's probably a shrine to him in this building somewhere, I suspect. Single-handedly put together the financing from that. It didn't hurt that our first tenant's daughter was involved in the county. I can't remember what the exact title was. It was where we went to for seed money to get started for each of our projects. But it's 12 units. It's designed with a big, if you've seen it, has a big open front porch, and it's L-shaped. In the middle of the L is a big community room with kitchenette and storage, where we have a community freezer that is shared, and a card room, an enclosed porch. There's a puzzle area, and it's very much of a family-like home. When they get together every spring, just before lead starts, pick out fish fry places they can reach by only turning right. Well, purchase samples of the dinner, select them, bring them back, and then choose where they're going to go.
And on Sunday, when the Sunday dinner ministry of our churches bring in food, they will eat it. It's delivered to the common area. So they come together. They've made themselves a family.
They are.
And that's our goal. We want that family feeling.
We love Rose Hollow and wish that we could replicate it. I would tell you too that one of the things that we're doing at Fair Grove is we've got the 76 units that are being built right now. 50% of those will be eShine, that's our state supported housing. It's basically a non-Medicaid assisted living thing, like assisted living. It's people who need a little help getting by each day to be able to continue to thrive living independently. Phase 2 will be, we're not sure the exact number, probably 27 cottages, 2 places and 5 places, 4 cottages in the front that will sort of soften the view of the building. We submitted the state. When you apply to state, it takes like 3 to 4 years to get funding, several applications and a lot of nonsense. And when we did, they said, well, it's too big, you've got to cut in 2. So we did just build the building first. then when we applied for funding for the building itself front, they said, well, that's too small. You have to add it to something else. So now we're adding it to another project elsewhere with 200 units. That's the state that we deal with and how we get our funding. But at any rate, so we would love to know anything that you know about Little Land, where we could shoehorn something like Rose Hollow. It doesn't even have to be L-shaped on one level. You could put an elevator in. It's something that we're not likely to get funded by the state, but it's nice to have little places, little pocket places like that where people can walk to the grocery store, walk to their church, walk to whatever they want, the doctors, lawyers, it's all in here in the village. It's the perfect place, and it's a charming place to live. And 40%, when we opened Jefferson Park, 40% of the new residents came from outside the area. They were living in areas where they were away from their family, they wanted the country to be closer to their kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever, because we estimate that 40 to 60% of our residents are what we call orphan seniors. They have no family around here. We're in. So,
What was Rosie 2? I just remember Bob Riddell talking about Rosie 2. Was there a
Are you
second?
thinking of Rose Lawn or Rose? There was actually a Rosie 2, but I thought that was after Bob's day. Rosie 2 was, you know, where on High Street where the massive building is. We had an option to buy all of one of those lots. We didn't see the Living Council. And we were hoping to replicate Rose Hollow there, one-story kind of thing that would fit in and somehow link it with, I don't know if you put an outdoor elevator or whatever on that, but that was Rosie, that was what we referred to as Rosie 2. It never came built, never got built.
Okay.
Bob was involved with building Rose Lawn, which still exists, senior housing for people development. So we ran in debt, was fully occupied at first, and then dwindled down to next to nothing, mainly because of lack of private bathrooms. And we found the Rose Hollow model with an apartment where you could go close your door if you wanted to. And there are always a few people who do. Not all dozen are in there for the community. There are some folks who are hermits. That's their privilege. But it is a family. It's a very supportive kind of situation. And there are people there who live there far longer than they probably could if they were in an apartment someplace else, because they have that supportive neighbors. They'll run out and get along for when Bob Riddell was developed, it was the Senior Living Council, which was a unique combination of the Village of Fairport, Town of Barrington, and Barrington Churches Housing, and a nonprofit member corporation. We were the three members. And that organization ran and prospered, and that was the entity that owned Rose Hollow and Rose Lawn that was trying to build Rosie 2. It eventually, and they started to craft bits and pieces. It started with a half-time social worker and grew to the point that we had staff with 6 social workers, someone managing, and a full-time dispatcher for the transportation program. And Bob Riddell was the executive director, Cal Wazikowski was the executive director, and then it got turned over to a volunteer executive director, and when she retired, no one was willing to take over. By that time, it had grown so big that it got turned over in a friendly turnover to Fairport Baptist Home just before COVID hit. Who knew? The leadership of the Fairport Baptist Home and some community volunteers, some of you may have heard the name Pat Knapp once or twice, have formed a new group, a new corporation, and they were, how can we say this, able to extricate the Senior Living Council and the stores away from the ownership of the new ownership of the Baptist. So they formed a new corporation. There'll probably be some name changes, but the Senior Living Council has been pulled out of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if you hear from them shortly about essentially perhaps even reconstituting the plan that we had before. That worked so well.
I have a question. How was the relationship previously between you folks and OSAD? Like, how did you work together in the past?
OSAD provided the staff for the Senior Living Council for about 20 years. the Senior Living Council started more than that, close to the 30s. Started in the 1980s when there was a survey of the quality of life of seniors in the village and the town. And at that point, transportation was determined to be the highest need, greatest need. We went to Albany and they said, why don't they take buses and subways? Just, you know, everything is seen through the lens of New York City, you know. So we started our own group. Ironically, now they're doing spot programs like this throughout the state. They even funded us to do one, which I think is hilarious. And for a long time, Bob and Mary McNulty, who was a senior, who's a member of the town village council,
Yep.
and others, went around the state doing dog and pony shows and how we did it. And Mary McNulty, we thought she was starting raving mad, but humored her and said, yeah, sure, try it, look it out. And when we turned over the Baptist home, we were clearing about $160,000 to $180,000 a year in selling things that were mostly priced under $1. And the tool shop never prospered as much, but it is very popular. But people come to that silly crap bits and pieces from whenever they're visiting families, they're there. It's amazing how successful they've been. And you can imagine what would happen if that was stayed with the for-profit corporation. Those are the volunteers. That's a volunteer money store. So you guys really did the grunt work, if you will, the day-to-day work. Bob Riddell is executive director, and Cal did. They did an excellent job. There were some other names, if you mentioned them, I might remember them. I could tell you. Somebody did the taxes. It was on the side. We paid for it, but not much. The records were all kept here. Sandra at Fairport Baptist Home did the clearing, did all the checking of the residents, make sure they qualified, maintained, did that took over management. But it was very symbiotic. The village was a very important part of that. And that's part of the reason why I went to Baptist Home, because by then the village had withdrawn and there was really, it needed professional leadership. At one point, the Senior Living Council actually paid half-time salary for someone that the village hired to deal with Senior Living Council, because it became more of an important thing, and that worked out very well. But somewhere along the line, not at my pay level, a decision was made to stop that. And for that, here on behalf of the Senior Living Council, say let's go back to that. But we are here to say we're in business for finding places to build senior housing, and it doesn't have to be 100 unit.
Probably not.
So imagining another Rose Hollow model,
Something along.
what minimum acres do you, I'm not good at that stuff.
Well,
It really depends.
yeah, I'm thinking you could theoretically do a 2-story building with an elevator, and maybe you could do it but then to make it cost effective, if you went through the state, they won't fund anything that's less than 32 units. It's somewhere in the 30s. So to do something smaller, we would have to come up with our own source of funding, probably Section 8 for the rents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it could be whatever size you want. You could do something relatively small, and maybe you have to do this, have somebody around to mow the lawn and be available for tenant services and maintenance kind of things. We probably have to hire that out. Obviously, have to hire that out to someone. It used to be the Baptist Home, which is calling, and we still might be able to.
And who does it at Rosie's?
Baptist Home.
Rosie, okay.
Because the Baptist Home, because the Senior Living Council got turned over to the Baptist Home,
Okay.
they got Rose Hollow, much to our chagrin. We were fine with it when it was the Baptist Home, as the Baptist Home was. We're not real happy campers.
So my job is generally, I'm the people person. I'm the youngest one here, 4 years and on the American Church's housing. And I am one of the people who brought my mother down from the North Country, which has zero of anything, just before COVID, which was awesome. But I've watched success. She got into the Fairport apartment, and I've watched the community success piece where we have managers who encourage people to come in, use the community room for mahjong, for Wednesday rosary, for coffee and donuts on Friday. And we've done some outreach at Fairport Church's housing by giving out Valentines, and that's not trivial. It started out with 105 Valentines just for Fairport apartments, because I started it when my mother was there, and I realized how many people on Valentine's Day have no one to send them a Valentine. So in cooperation with the manager, there were Valentines taped to everybody's door, and that grew in the last couple of years, and we now last year handed out 800 and some Valentines, because we went from there to Northfield, to the Baptist Home, to Rose Hollow, to Press Manor. So we kept pulling in and getting more names of places that we should pay attention to. And it's the community members that contributed. The women's retirement group at the community center made Valentines. The churches made Valentines. So there's a real human piece of this. And I think we want a home for our people to be able to sit outside on a chair in a nice atmosphere, be able to walk. So if you see walkers and wheelchairs go down to Church Hill from Fairport Apartment, it's common. We have people who walk 2-3 miles a day up and down Whitney around the buildings, and they greet their friends. And that's what we want. We want to build a home, not a building. That's my feel.
Would you both do me the courtesy of sharing your views with me one more time? Oh, forgive me.
We have business cards.
Yes, we do.
We have 3 of them, but we have so.
Okay. I'm Susie Stopa,
Thanks, Susan.
and I represent Church of the Resurrection.
I'm Rick Hill. And Tom Rule is president.
Yeah, he's the
His
president.
Latin card.
Do you need another one?
You have
I'm
that
good,
one.
thank you.
I have your cards. Self-selected if you don't want.
So I'm down to 4, so.
Thank you, I'm Rob. Tom, thank you.
Awesome.
I was going to ask a question of you guys in regards to your experience over the past 10 years, or the time since Rose Hollow. Really, it's about your experience with Rose Hollow. How do you find the conversations you have with your partners, developer partners, around the scope or the scale of a development or of a property that you just spoke to, Susie, like a home, not a building? In the other conversations that we've had, one of the challenges with developers is they have a profitability point that is, generally speaking, higher than our vision of when we think about number of units or scope or size of a structure. What's your experience been like when you're kind of seeking out opportunities for what you've identified, what you shared today with is the goal, home, as opposed to the building?
That was actually part of when we, after we secured the Bear Road property and started looking for a developer, that was part of the discussion right up front. It's like, we want somebody who shares our mission and vision. We've had very good success with Fairport Apartments with Rochester Cornerstone, who manages that. Unfortunately, they were not able to participate, so we had to find somebody new to work with on that. And Pets don't fit the bill. I mean, they're another nonprofit organization. So we have 2 nonprofits working together, and we see the other properties that they manage, and they try to do the same model. They want a community, not just a place where people are parked for their homes. So it turned out to be a good thing.
And we've talked to other corporations, and we've had some good experience. And we just looked at an out of Burlington site with Jeff Cook of Taylor Builders, and they're known for building Heritage Christian Services stuff, which I have a daughter at one of their homes. So we're out, we're investigating, we're looking for people who have that shared idea of, we want to build a home, and can you envision your mother or father walking around the building for exercise or something? And that's an important component.
We do the math. It's $16.5 million for 76 units on Bear Road. The cost of building affordable housing is no less expensive than building luxury houses. So to find a builder who was willing to just build it and walk away as opposed to build it and rent it, make a profit and sell it out as condos, make another profit is not easy. It's not a huge pool of people who are able to do that. When working with the state, we have to follow their rules, which are set down, again, with the ones in New York City, for example, when they originally built Fairport apartments, they were all in flat roofs. Leaked like a sieve. We knew they were leaking, we knew it was because they were flat roofs, we applied for grants from them to put on private roofs, and they said, no, that's not your problem. They actually gave us $500,000 to hire engineers to come out and squirt colored water to prove that the water was flowing downhill. It's an amazing principle. They must have master's degrees at least to figure that out. And they still said, well, but you don't need slanted roofs. Well, when we redid it, we put slanted roofs on, despite them. But when that was built, that was UDC stuff. They can do whatever they wanted, however they wanted. And it was a disaster. So when we submitted the designs for this, because the buildings are a little bit at an angle, there was a custodian's closet that was too big for their criteria. We had to take space out of it, create hall space, because it was too big. The community room can only be so many square feet. One of the apartments was a square too big too. It's asinine, truly. So we would love to be free of that nonsense and be able to build, but to build an affordable.
How did Bob Rydell do that? So like if you speak to Pastor and other folks, have you talked to them about this smaller scale, 12 unit, and do they have thoughts on non-state funding or other avenues of funding? Or
the people who approach us are basically looking for another 100-unit building. They're not looking to do a Rose Hollow. We would have to find someone else. I'm not sure what I think Downey did Rose Lawn. Don't know who did Rose Hollow. It was just before I came on senior trust. Downey's a local builder that walked on. But, and it was done well. It was a beautiful job. If you've ever went through the building. We used to have, if you drive by, you have no idea. It's a community home. It's gorgeous. We used to have Christmas parties.
And that wasn't state funded.
No.
That was just private.
That was
private equity and like a bank or like how like.
I know that he had a couple of layers of funding for Rose Hollow, including some outfit out of East Rochester. People said, "Oh, I know that that's the such and such bank." Okay. How he did that, I don't know. He's still in Springwater and he's still lucid.
Yeah. Okay. That might be helpful.
Because we actually hauled him up here a couple of times for celebrations of Rose Hollow. I mean, they absolutely love him. But the other thing that we've noticed when you talk about changes is over the past 20 years I've been involved in this, our intake age, and this is across the board, there's nursing homes in Northfield, North Meadow, whatever.
Yeah.
And our places is the ages are much higher. Rose Hollow still has some of the pioneer residents who came in 1991 left, and there are others who've been there almost that long. But now when they're coming in, they're mostly in their mid to late 80s, and they're staying less time because then they're graduating to skilled nursing. So we're getting older, more people. They're staying in the home.
They want to be home.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they want someplace that feels it for them.
We're certainly aligned, at least in a lot of the conversations that we have around housing, are trying to solve that riddle of how do we scale wise make it fit naturally into where we are, and diversify the options available to someone looking for a place to live that isn't a huge complex of its own.
There are a few parcels in the village. I mean, part of the problem is that whenever one comes up, it's for sale. A developer is going to build a $1 million parcel. The village is happy because that's $1 million for property taxes. And we come in and say, no, we'd like to put something that will give you nothing. Now, that may not even cover the cost of the fire and police, the water service, and we'll take this space off the rolls for you. So, we're not always warmly received by municipalities because that's who we are and what we do. But on the flip side, it can be done. And because we have been persistent and are building, and that's hope to build on a quicker pace in the future, like every 10 years, it's every 20 to 30. We do accumulate developers fees from it. So the next project we go, we think we can be the majority owner, whether it's a big one or small one. And we got some cash that we can spend, and we're not in it to make money. So if we have to use that cash to keep the rents low, we're happy to do so. We're not a for-profit.
He calls us the do-gooders.
Yeah, we're a bunch
I
of church
say we
do-gooders.
create opportunities.
Yeah, we're a bunch of church do-gooders. We're not developers. We go out and we hire someone to be a developer. And we've learned a lot from that process, I dare say.
Do you have a short list of developers when you think about future projects where you've had good, productive conversations that lead to at least a maybe we could collaborate on a smaller scale project?
Yeah,
That's great.
we actually interviewed someone who was willing to let us be the lead last time, but we weren't quite there financially. So hopefully we might be able to do that for this next project. And they were more flexible. It was a family operation, not very well known. I've never heard of them before, but checked them out. They seem to be okay. So I think we can find someone if we can find land and if we can come up with an affordable plan. But again, whether we find an affordable house or not, the average cost of construction per unit, luxury or subsidized, is still going to be around $3,000 to $4,000 mark by the time you think about all this. So sometimes we get land donated. Somebody gave us the land they didn't give it to us at Jefferson Park, but it was well below market value. We probably paid above market for Fairport Road when we first did the deal, but by the time we bought it, it was a bargain.
I guess the same question that Rob asked about developers, I would ask about land. I mean, I don't need to know what land, but do you also kind of keep your eye on
Oh, yes.
parcels that
There's a couple parcels that we could probably act on. Somebody were kind enough to manage the check for $3 million.
And like Taylor, the builders, they said, we'll keep our eyes out.
Yeah.
And we'll keep in touch, let you know if something comes up that you could work with.
Sometimes it's timing too. We approach the people building in the corner of Jefferson, southwest corner of Jefferson and Fairport Road.
That's home leasing.
There now, but when it first came on the market, we approached them. Oh, we didn't want to put housing there. This is all going to be commercial stuff. Well, guess what?
Market's changing.
Yeah, and the market changed. In the meantime, we're literally around the corner. We've got a much better place. We've looked at a lot of property. I use the expression, you kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince. We've had a lot of frogs when it comes to property. We toads, I guess. But yeah, so and the land we're building on now came about because someone on our board of directors plays poker with someone else who knew that was going to be available, and we got in there first.
Word of mouth.
I thought you were going to say they want a hand.
Oh, I wish it was
I
that
think
easy.
If any of you have friends, let them know. Tell them. You never know where the land on the Jefferson came to us. Ronnie Rahman was involved in that. She knew somebody who knew somebody. Like Don Young, who was a past president of Fairport Churches Housing and also served the Senior Living Council. You run into the same names all over the place. So we're just trying to get our name out, and somebody comes along and they want to give us a deal on some land. We're here to take it. Take it out of your hands. And get all your builders who are willing to build it cheap.
Inexpensive, not cheap.
Right.
Quality.
Right.
Quality.
Quality housing, low price.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Any other questions?
Anything else?
Thank you, guys. This is
Yeah.
really.
And if any of you would like to see, we're going to be doing a sneak peek at, I know you said, I think you've already done there. We're
It
gonna do a
was
sneak
still
peek.
pretty rough when I went through those, so.
Well, with the power stuff, the big holdup was our Genie. We'd be welcoming tenants next month at board.
Are you still waiting?
The equipment just arrived.
Why isn't that Fairport Electric?
Oh,
It's not.
if we
It's
can just
outside
run a
There's a
line.
line behind
We
there.
are
It's right behind
just
that
over
parcel.
there.
But we did get a $1 million grant from NYSERDA for being net zero electric use. And how you can do that on RG lines, I don't know.
You know, with Fairport Electric,
you still would have the problem if you have any gas lines with RG&E. So
Yeah.
So still need them to
But
come.
they're all electric, so
Yeah.
We're all
just
electric.
switch gear and
But
stuff
when
like
they were
that.
running the electric line, there was a water line or sewer line or something that didn't belong where it was, so they had to complete.
Normal.
Yeah, it's usual.
Yeah, literally, RG&E held this project up for months.
Yeah.
I think we can find land, we need funding. And so we need a Bob Riddell, if any of you have those skills. Or you can- It's
Or
not something
somebody
you
who
go to
does.
FCC and take a course. Either have you done. How we did it, I don't know, but.
We'll have to go through the files.
Mhm.
Go through
Yeah.
the files. But you mentioned a sneak peek out at Fair Grove.
We will be doing a sneak peek probably in mid-July.
That would be great.
Of what we're doing. We're trying not to publicize it because we're just swamped with people who want to live there and they want to see it. So, but we're going to be inviting village and town officials and so we'll let you know, and you can pass it